You are listening to Where is the Music podcast. My name is Alberto, and on this program I will talk about music in all its forms. I discuss the creative part, the understanding of music, the role that music has in our culture, our shared life, our psyche, and I will do that with the help of my piano. You can find me on all major podcasting platforms and my work as composer, pianist and teacher at albertoferro.com. This podcast has no sponsor. If you like to support me, click the link to my Patreon page, available in the description. With a contribution as little as few dollars a month, you will significantly help me keep doing what I do. Now, on to this episode of Where is the Music? Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I thought we could take a deep dive into the ternary principle in music. We're gonna see all things in 3. The number 3 is just a number, but I hope I will be able to show you throughout today's episode the special spot that the number 3 occupies in musical creativity. I should say many numbers do. The relationship between music and mathematics is vast and has many trajectory and perspectives. And particularly, number 3 exemplifies one of the possibilities in which musical creatives and music expression can be influenced, inspired by a principle, a mathematical, sometimes a logical, sometimes geometrical principle, in order to create musical meaning, musical content. When talking about music, as soon as we open the doors to numbers, we are establishing a connection with mathematics. And to start, I'm going to just give you a couple of quotes taken from Wikipedia. So, though ancient Chinese, Indians, Egyptian and Mesopotamian are known to have studied the mathematical principle of sound, but the Pythagorean of ancient Greece were the first researchers known to have investigated the expression of musical scales in terms of numerical ratios. So they were able to express, this is me, they were able to express sounds, particularly sounds relationships, intervals between sounds in terms of ratios, fractions. This is one of the first encounter between music and mathematics. And then back onto Wikipedia. Their central doctrine was that all nature consists of harmony arising out of numbers. That's interesting. From the time of Plato, harmony was considered a fundamental branch of physics. Early Indians and Chinese theorists show similar approaches. All sought to show that the mathematical laws of harmonics and rhythms were fundamental not only to our understanding of the world, but to human well-being. Confucius, like Pythagoras, regarded the small numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 as the source of all perfection. This is to show how far back the relationship between music and mathematics goes. And so let's start. I'm going to start by saying that the distinction between duple and triple, meaning binary and ternary, is at the basis of musical creativity, particularly in relations with tempo and rhythm, which will be the area of our focus today. This is different because this applies to the way in which we count time, we express musical time through numbers. As a matter of fact, and this is the second quote from Wikipedia, the modern terms meter and measure that we use to describe musical time reflect the historical importance of music in the development of counting, arithmetic, and the exact measurement of time and periodicity that is fundamental to physics. Periodicity, it's an interesting word. Think of astronomy. Think of the importance that the realization that there are periodical events that surround Earth, how important that was for the understanding of physics, mathematics, nature, the world. So looking at periodical events has given rise to concepts like meter and measure, which we now use to describe musical time. Looking at early music, we find that one of the most important way of composing, and obviously I'm referring to vocal music, was through rhythmic modes, which is the first new concept that I introduced today. Rhythmic mode. A rhythmic mode is a unit of two or more syllables organized in alternation of long and short, which in Latin are called longa and brevis. This is, by the way, a topic that I explored a bit in a previous episode. I think it was one called Music and Poetry, in which I was talking about, I was using Mozart to describe the relationship between the metrical foot in poetry and the way music applies this principle to create rhythm and melody. Coming back to the rhythmic modes, each mode consisted of a short pattern of long and short note value corresponding to a metrical foot, as I said, which we find as well in poetry. For example, the first rhythmic mode is long short, which is called trochee. The second is short long, which we call iamb. The third is long, short, and short, which we call dactyl. Perhaps you recall this from school: trochee, iamb, and dactyl. And there are three more combinations of long and short, each one being a rhythmic mode. So now the first very interesting aspect: all these modes adhere to a ternary principle of meter, meaning that each mode would have a number of bit subdivisions divisible by the number 3. What does that mean? That however you combine these modes all together, one after the other, but it seems possible that you can musically set all of them together under a ternary meter, under a ternary subdivision of meter, like either a waltz or just a compound time signature. So some medieval writers explained this fact as a veneration for the perfection of the Holy Trinity, which it makes sense if you think of early music until perhaps the Baroque and the classical music. It makes sense to say, well, how come this whole system has this special relationship with number 3? It must be because of the Holy Trinity. But perhaps today we can see this as an explanation, after the fact, not exactly the cause. However, it is interesting to point this out. So the first example I'm going to play today is to show how these rhythmic modes do impact all music in a way or another. And this is from a very famous classical piece by Schubert. You have heard this a million times. This is the incredibly beautiful Schubert Impromptu in G flat from the Opus 90. So, if you look at the top melody, we have a combination of the third mode and the fifth mode. The third was long, short, short, and here we go. Long, short, short. And the fifth was a combination of long and long. So, from the beginning, long, short, short, long, long. Right? Long, short, short, long, long. Then we have another fifth mode, which are long and long. In this case, the second long has been turned into a melism, and you'll see what that means. And then in the end, fourth mode, which is short, short, long. Here we have long and long. Long, that's the melism, a single note, which perhaps is this one, has been turned into. This is obviously possible because all the way throughout history, until Romantic at least, a single syllable was sung on different notes. So you can tell if this is sung on a single syllable. Now, metrically speaking, that's just one foot rather than 4 different notes. So as we were saying, this is long, long, then short, short, long. I think you see the point. Now, the ternary principle might apply even to other levels of creativity. So, if we think of, for example, music that is set in 3 beats at a time, like a waltz, we call it in 3/4. Sure, it's amazing, but if we consider each single beat and we subdivide it in 3, then we have what we call in music compound time signatures. So music can apply a ternary principle by grouping beats together, like in a waltz, or by subdividing each beat into 3. So it's gonna be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, right? That's what subdivision means. Starting from this principle, you can see how combinations of time signatures and subdivisions and compound meter can create. So, for example, free bits music is the same time signature we use for a mazurka, for a minuet, for a waltz, or for example for a saraband, like this one taken from Bach English Suite in F major. It is difficult given how slow and emotional it is, this kind of music, to hear a ternary beat underneath, a ternary rhythm underneath. But there is actually this not only is in free, but it is also using a second rhythmic mode, the short long. Short long. And again, short, long. And again. Okay, but also I mentioned subdivisions and compound meter. An example is time signature of 9/8. The 9/8 is ternary time signature. We can think of it as 1 and 2 and 3 and an example, and also it's compound, meaning that each bit is subdivided in 3. As I said, is 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. An example is from another English suite by Johann Sebastian Bach. This one is 6 in D minor. Etc. 1 and 2 and 3 and But if we scale up to the so-called macro level, we encounter a series of different applications of number 3, particularly with regard to phrases and musical form. So the next example is taken from Beethoven Sonata. This is the 6th Beethoven Sonata, Opus 10, number 2. I'm going to play you a bit of this and then talk through a few aspects. Okay, this is the young Beethoven, already full of energy. So, how is 3 relevant here? By the way, the time signature is 2/4, so nothing to do with number 3. Well, let's look at the very first statement. I see something that Beethoven does in various occasions particularly in his early music, which is attempt to start once, attempt to start twice, and then finally exploding or opening up, becoming something, transforming into something real, alive, and moving forward. That's exactly the case. You have the first, the second, and the opening, transformation. And then at the end of the phrase, it does it again. The second, the third time. Oh, what a coincidence. Not just he transforms, kind of explodes into a forte, but the statement, the little gesture, is repeated 3 times. 1, 2, 3, which is taken as the rhythmic mode for the next theme. You can hear the 3 main notes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then. Etc. So you heard that the third time it became something else, transformed into something. How interesting, huh? So there is an interesting connection here between Beethoven and Hegel. I'm not expert to talk about philosophy, but I always found interesting how Hegel was able to articulate this ternary principle that Beethoven, I had the feeling, I had the sense that Beethoven was able to interpret musically very well in examples such as this: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I thought this is certainly inspiring, but also the ternary principle, which we have just seen in the level, in the dimension of phrases, how phrases can move forward through application of a ternary principle, also applies to larger structures of musical form. It is quite common to find classical music separated into sections, 3 sections, the first and the last being based on the same material. This form is typically called ABA. Of course, A meaning the either a repetition of the entire section as it is, or maybe a repetition with a few variations here and there. But the identity between the first and the last shows that the trajectory of the music is able to move forward, because after the middle section we are coming back to the home, the first statement. A typical example of classical music is the minuet. The minuet traditionally is divided in 3 parts. They have a name. They called minuet, trio, and minuet. The trio, the central part, It's called trio because coincidentally was performed only by 3 instruments rather than the entire orchestra, giving a different, more intimate feel to it. And since then, even minuets written for, let's say, keyboard, harpsichord or piano, they still maintain the distinction of minuet, trio and minuet. Before we go to the final section of today's episode, I wanted to just add a quick note on other dimensions in which the ternary principle is applied in music, ways in which it's not common to hear people talking about it. The cadential movement, what we call as the cadence, or perhaps the best example is the perfect cadence. We think of it as 5-1, and we have heard it a million times, especially at the end of a piece. Right? That's a perfect cadence. But this is possible only when we think of it as part of a context, and that context is a tonal context of music that is established around the chord number 1. So the real cadence is not just 5-1, but the real full cadence is a triple movement. Which is at the basis of European or Western contemporary and classical tonal harmony, but it just shows you also the 3 steps of musical narration or tension and resolution. We cannot start from tension. We have to start from a starting point and then add the tension from which we will be able to resolve. So you see that what we call the cadential or the cadence, the cadential movement, and we think of it as 2 places of tension and resolution, is actually 3. And there is another aspect in which harmony can be seen as a play between 3 agents. And you probably have heard the term tonic dominant and subdominant. Well, they represent the main functions that we hear when we participate in Western music. There are plenty of examples of this, but the best example I thought it could be the blues. The blues is a form which is in 12 bars, generally speaking, which is dividable for 3. You see usually music divided into 3 lines of 4. 3 lines of 4, meaning 3 phrases. How interesting. The basic structure of blues is divided in 3 phrases. More than that, each of these phrases is centered around one of these harmonic functions. One is around the tonic, another is around the subdominant, and the last is around the dominant. So if you're not too familiar with these terms, let's say what they are: tonic, subdominant, and dominant. Okay, this allows me to come back to the tonic, subdominant, and dominant. Okay, this doesn't sound very blues though, I admit that now. Okay, this is tonic, subdominant, and now the area of dominant. subdominant, dominant, okay, I hope I made my case for the triple principle in music. To conclude today's episode, which was particularly dense, I shall say, I'm gonna talk about play more than talk. One of the most beautiful composition, I think, ever written in the history of music by Mozart. This is from the Clarinet Concerto in A, K622, 622, and I'm gonna say a few things about the Adagio, the second movement, because the number 3 here, in applied in the many ways I've presented today, seems to be perfectly represented. How so? First of all, the time signature is in 3. Okay, this is the general feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and another coincidence is that the very first note of the clarinet melody, it's on a triad, 3 notes. Right? Those are the 3 notes. This is perhaps not necessarily statistically uncommon, but nevertheless, it's data. But then, if we look at the first 3 motives of the music, we realize something similar to what we encountered in Beethoven earlier. We have the first statement, the second, and you see how the second already responds to the first, but at the same time is a little development of the first. It goes higher than the first. The third not only responds to both the previous ones, but is longer, develops them and concludes them. So here is a period made of 8 bars, but with 3 phrases. Isn't that a bit unsquare, uneven, illogical, but musically perfect? That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. This first melody will be repeated by the orchestra, very much in the same way. You will hear raise in the dynamic. Then we come back to piano, pianissimo, and the soloist comes back with this melody. Well, I don't need to explain. We have 8 bars, once again divided in a magical manner into 3 short phrases. The third being a response of the second, and the first being once again a development and a conclusion of it. Perhaps I can just say that even from the formal perspective, this piece is in ABA form. We have an initial exposition of the main melodies. We have a central section. You will hear that the melody becomes a little bit creative and inventive, capricious and quick. Will travel throughout the entire keyboard. Hopefully I'll be able to render this clarinet feel. And then after a little cadenza, a little moment of improvisation, we come back to the initial melody. So A, B, and A. Mozart here adds a coda. You will hear when he goes and the following bars are added. The coda it quite long, meaning it might feel it stands as a section on its own, although Mozart is able to just give it a conclusion feel, a conclusion sense. Therefore, proportionally speaking, even if it's a significant amount of bars, it doesn't really stand the musical weight of what happens before. So here we go. I give you the clarinet concerto in A, the Adagio, and for which you will have a link in the description. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to our next meeting here at Where is the Music podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye bye. Thanks for listening to Where is the Music podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, look up for others. I made a few. I publish an episode every week roughly, investigating each time a different aspect of music. The music making, the music listening, the meaning of music, and its relevance in our lives. It is very helpful for me if you like, subscribe, follow on your favorite platform. Where is the Music is on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TuneIn, and Google Podcasts. If you like to support me, you are free to do so through Patreon. Link in description. Thank you again. Until next time.